Welcome back to the embryology lecture series. In today's session, we will take up the second part of the development of urinary system, and in the same, we will be discussing the development of urinary bladder and urethra. Coming to the specific learning objectives of this session, first, we'll have a quick recap of the cloaca and urogenital sinus, which is important from the viewpoint of this class. Then, we will see the detailed development of the urinary bladder and the male and female urethra. We will briefly see the development of the prostate gland, and finally, we will see the important congenital anomalies related to development of bladder and urethra. We have already studied in the development of the hindgut that the cloaca is divided into two parts. The anterior part is called as the urogenital sinus and the posterior part is called as the primitive rectum. And these two parts are separated by a layer of mesoderm, which is termed as the urorectal septum. And we have also studied that the tip of the urorectal septum eventually forms the perineal body. So, the two divisions of the cloaca, the anterior division, the urogenital sinus, and the posterior division, the primitive rectum, and these two are separated by the urorectal septum. Now we will try to concentrate a little bit more on the urogenital sinus. The urogenital sinus at this stage is also termed as the primitive urogenital sinus. So you should note both these terms are the same, urogenital sinus or the primitive urogenital sinus. We have also studied in our class in the development of the kidney that the mesonephric ducts open into the urogenital sinus. And based on this opening of the mesonephric ducts into the urogenital sinus, the urogenital sinus is divided into two parts. The part of the urogenital sinus above the opening of mesonephric duct is called as the vesico-urethral canal. The part of the urogenital sinus below the opening of mesonephric duct is termed as the definitive urogenital sinus. So, the mesonephric ducts open into the urogenital sinus or the primitive urogenital sinus, and based on this opening, the urogenital sinus is divided into two parts. The part above the opening of mesonephric duct is called as the vesico-urethral canal, and the part below the opening of mesonephric duct is called as the definitive urogenital sinus. Now what happens is that this definitive urogenital sinus is further subdivided into two parts, a cranial pelvic part and a caudal phallic part. So the definitive urogenital sinus is further subdivided into cranial pelvic part and a caudal phallic part. So now you know that the primitive urogenital sinus first is subdivided into two parts, the upper vesico-urethral canal and the lower definitive urogenital sinus. And the definitive urogenital sinus is subsequently divided into two parts, a cranial pelvic part and a caudal phallic part. Now at this stage, if you examine the primitive urogenital sinus, you can see the three parts, namely the vesico-urethral canal, the pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus and the phallic part of definitive urogenital sinus. So now the primitive urogenital sinus or the urogenital sinus has got three divisions, namely the upper one is the vesico-urethral canal, The middle one is the pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus, and the lower part is the phallic part of definitive urogenital sinus. Now we will see something more regarding the vesico-urethral canal. We have already stated that the allantois or the allantoic diverticulum opens at the cranial end of the vesico-urethral canal. So the allantois or the allantoic diverticulum opens at the cranial end of vesico-urethral canal. The upper large part of vesico-urethral canal expands, whereas the lower part remains narrow. With these ideas, we will now go to the development of the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder is developed from the upper large and dilated part of vesico-urethral canal. So the upper large and dilated part of vesico-urethral canal forms the urinary bladder. The developing bladder is initially continuous with the allantois at its apex. After obliteration of allantois, a thick fibrous cord remains, and this remnant of allantois is termed as urachus. And this urachus now connects the apex of the bladder with the umbilicus. And we already have studied that the urachus forms the median umbilical ligament in the adult. So the urinary bladder is formed from the upper large dilated part of vesico-urethral canal, and the urachus, which is a fibrous remnant of the allantois, connects the apex of the bladder with the umbilicus, and this urachus is represented by the median umbilical ligament in the adult. We have seen earlier that the mesonephric ducts open into the primitive urogenital sinus. And what happens later during the development of urinary bladder is that the caudal portions of the mesonephric ducts get absorbed into the wall of the developing urinary bladder. So the caudal parts of the mesonephric ducts get absorbed into the wall of the urinary bladder. The ureters, which initially arise as outgrowths from the mesonephric duct, enter the bladder separately. During further development, the orifices of the ureters move further cranially, whereas the orifices of the mesonephric ducts move close together to enter the prostatic urethra. And in the male, these become the ejaculatory ducts. You have already studied the trigone of the urinary bladder. Now, this trigone has got a development which is somewhat different from the rest of the urinary bladder. We have already studied that the epithelium of the bladder develops from the vesico-urethral canal. So, naturally, it will be endodermal in origin. And we also seen that both the mesonephric ducts and the ureters originate in the mesoderm. So, the epithelium of the trigone is derived from the absorbed part of mesonephric ducts. And since they are derived from the mesonephric ducts, the epithelium of the trigone is mesodermal in origin. So, the epithelium of the bladder develops from the vesico-urethral canal. It is endodermal, whereas the epithelium of the trigone is developed from the absorbed part of mesonephric ducts. So, the epithelium of the trigone is mesodermal. Now we will take up the development of urethra. First, we will consider the development of male urethra. You have already studied that the male urethra is divided into three parts: the prostatic part, the membranous part, and the spongy part. The spongy part includes the bulbar and the penile parts. The part of the prostatic urethra above the openings of ejaculatory ducts develops from the caudal part of vesico-urethral canal. So the part of the prostatic urethra above the level of openings of ejaculatory ducts develops from the caudal part of vesico-urethral canal. The posterior wall of this part of prostatic urethra is formed from the absorbed mesonephric ducts, and because of this this posterior wall of the prostatic urethra above the openings of ejaculatory ducts is mesodermal. The part of the prostatic urethra below the openings of ejaculatory ducts develop from the upper pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus. The part of the prostatic urethra below the opening of ejaculatory ducts are formed from the upper pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus. The membranous part of male urethra develops from the lower pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus. The membranous part of urethra is formed from the lower pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus. The spongy part, which includes the bulbar and penile parts, develops from the phallic part of definitive urogenital sinus. The spongy part develops from the phallic part of definitive urogenital sinus. The terminal part of the urethra, which is situated in the glans penis, is derived from the surface ectoderm. The terminal part of urethra seen in the glans penis is derived from the surface ectoderm. So to summarize the development of male urethra, the part of prostatic urethra above the opening of ejaculatory ducts develops from the caudal part of vesico-urethral canal, and the part of the prostatic urethra below the opening of the ejaculatory ducts develops from the upper part of the pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus. The membranous part is developed from the lower part of the pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus, whereas the spongy part is formed from the phallic part of definitive urogenital sinus. A point to note here is that the terminal part of the urethra, which is seen in the glans penis, is developed from the surface ectoderm. Here you might have noticed a unique point regarding the development of male urethra. The embryological significance of male urethra is that it is formed from all the three germ layers, namely the endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. So the male urethra is one of the very few anatomical structures in the human body which is derived from all the three germ layers: endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. Now we will briefly see the development of female urethra. The whole of the female urethra is developed from the narrow caudal part of vesico-urethral canal, and the small terminal part develops from the pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus. So the development of female urethra is rather easy. The whole of the urethra is developed from the narrow caudal part of vesico-urethral canal, whereas a small terminal part develops from the pelvic part of definitive urogenital sinus. Now we will study the development of prostate gland. In the third month, the epithelium of the prostatic urethra begins to proliferate and forms a number of outgrowths that penetrate the surrounding mesenchyme. And in the male, these buds form the prostate gland. So, the epithelium of the prostatic urethra proliferates and forms a number of outgrowths or buds that penetrate the surrounding mesenchyme. And in the male, these buds, which originate from the prostatic urethra, form the prostate gland. In the female, what happens is that the cranial part of the urethra gives rise to the urethral and paraurethral glands. We have studied the development of urinary bladder and urethra. Now we'll try to see a few important congenital anomalies related to the development of bladder and urethra. The major congenital anomalies related to the development of urinary bladder are 1. Urachal sinus, fistula and cyst. All of these are related to a persistence of the allantois. And the second important congenital anomaly is called as the extrophy of urinary bladder, or is also called as ectopia vesicae. Extrophy of urinary bladder or ectopia vesicae. When the lumen of the intraembryonic part of the allantois persists, it results in a urachal fistula. This condition may cause urine to drain from the umbilicus. In extrophy of the bladder, there is a ventral body wall defect and the bladder mucosa is exposed. Coming to the anomalies of urethra, the two most common anomalies related to development of urethra are epispadias and hypospadias. So the two most common congenital anomalies related to urethral development are epispadias and hypospadias. In epispadias, the urethra opens on the dorsal aspect of penis. In epispadias, the urethra opens on the dorsal aspect of penis, and this condition is usually associated with ectopia vesicae or extrophy of urinary bladder. In hypospadias, the urethra opens on the undersurface of penis. In hypospadias, the urethra opens on the undersurface of penis. Before we conclude, we will see what are the important questions that can be asked from this particular class. The most important one is the development of urinary bladder. And you should also study the development of the trigone of the urinary bladder in detail. Then you should know the development of the different parts of male urethra and also the unique embryological feature of the male urethra. That is, it is one of the very few anatomical structures that is derived from all the three germ layers. You should know briefly regarding the development of the prostate gland, and finally you should be able to mention the most common anomalies of bladder and urethra development. Thank you. Stay safe.